I'm Emily Chang, and this is Bloomberg Technology. Coming up, Toshiba seals the deal. Its $18 billion agreement to sell its chip unit to a Bain-led consortium looks set to close. Plus, Roku's roaring success on its first day of trading. Shares took off despite being priced at the high end of the projected range. And Nadella sets the tone. My wide-ranging interview with the CEO of Microsoft on his new book and building upon the legacy of Steve Ballmer and Bill Gates. First to our lead. The largest tech deal of the year is one step closer to being finalized. Toshiba has signed a final agreement to sell its chip unit to a group led by private equity firm Bain Capital. The deal is worth nearly $18 billion. Toshiba needs to raise cash to pay for billions in losses in its U.S. nuclear business or risk being delisted from the Tokyo Stock Exchange. The Bain-led group includes tech heavyweights like Apple, Dell, SK Hynix, Seagate, and Hoya. But even after months of contentious negotiations, the deal could still be in jeopardy thanks to Toshiba's partner in the chip business, Western Digital. Joining me now to discuss are Bloomberg tech reporters Ian King, who covers chips, and Alex Webb, who covers Apple. Ian, I'll start with you. We're not close to a done deal yet, are we?
We're as close as we've been over all of these months. We've got a signed deal, which we've almost had several times, according to our reporting. But as you just pointed out, Emily, Western Digital, who are a partner in theory in this business still, do not like this deal at all.
Why
and
not?
are going to court. Well, it's very bad for them. They've said all along, last thing we want are our competitors in there. Hynix is in there. Seagate is in there. This is the worst scenario for them.
Why does Apple want to do this deal, Alex?
It seems though it's like just some sort of widget in the iPhone, but the reality is memory drives a lot of profit for Apple. If you think about when you buy an iPhone, you've got the base price, and to get more memory, you pay $100 or more. Now that chip, which you're paying $100 for, Apple might be paying less than $20. So it's a big way of boosting the money that they get from every single iPhone. And that's particularly important right now as we see demand for smartphones flattening.
So could Western Digital really hold up this deal? I mean, what's happening right now?
They say they can. I mean, they're part of the joint venture agreement includes something called binding arbitration, which they have a right to go to. They've invoked that. That's happening here in California. In theory, that arbitration could decide that what's going on right now is counter to the terms of their agreement and try to overturn it.
If indeed this does happen, is it enough to prevent Toshiba from being delisted from the Tokyo Stock Exchange?
They have gained a lot of interim loans, which are contingent on this deal being closed, that this money comes in. They also have some contingent liabilities regarding the nuclear business, which they have to cover. This money is enough if they can get it done ahead of time.
Alex, we've been talking the last couple of days about supply chain issues for Apple with the iPhone X. How would this impact their supply issues?
Well, having this doesn't affect any of the recent supply issues, but it ensures there is still a multiplicity of suppliers bringing these chips to the table. And the reason, of course, then that they don't want to risk those memory chips is if there are fewer players in the space, if Western Digital were to get their paws on the business, Apple is probably scared that the price for those chips would increase, and that puts at risk their supply chain and the way they manage it and the cost of the iPhone.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest monster here in the background is Samsung. Samsung has 40% of the market for these type of chips. You can imagine the kind of deal that they're going to be cutting Apple isn't going to be as that great, given that they're a direct competitor. So Apple really needs to keep lots of healthy suppliers to counterbalance Samsung.
So Ian, put this in the bigger picture for us. If this happens, how does it affect the broader chip sector, where we've already seen a lot of consolidation over the last year?
Exactly. This actually helps things continue as they were. This isn't really a consolidation. If, as Alex just said, Western Digital had been able to succeed with what it was trying to do, this would be more consolidation. This would be fewer suppliers. This would be, you know, not in the interests of Apple and all of the big customers.
Alex, what are you hearing from the Apple side of the equation?
Well, they have confirmed that they are investing in this. Apple's stake is going to be about $1.5 billion, 1.47, I think it is, of the 18. So by no means the lion's share of the pie. And crucially, I think Ian can probably confirm this, American companies are not allowed to have any input into the operations of the company. So in some ways, they'll be a sort of silent partner, but they're helping to try to get it over the finishing line.
Yeah, I mean, that's a crucial point, is to get this deal done in time, you need to go through antitrust approval in Japan. If a foreign company has a bigger stake, that becomes harder. So what they've tried to do is divide it up between several companies, so nobody has a controlling stake, none of the worries about Japan losing its last, great chip maker.
Alex, any more clarity on what we discussed yesterday, the supply chain issues facing the iPhone X right now in this moment?
Unfortunately, the waters are still as muddy as ever. I'm really afraid that it might be we have to wait till November the 3rd and see how long the queues are and see how many people are left disappointed having queued. We're still trying to get to the bottom of it, but as we know from the experience of our reporting, it's very difficult to get behind that very hard, shiny aluminium curtain.
All right, Alex Webb and Ian King at Bloomberg Technology, thank you so much. We'll keep watching for this deal. Well, Twitter has disclosed details about suspicious activity on the social media site during the 2016 presidential election. In a blog post, Twitter announced it disabled 22 accounts after reviewing information from Facebook showing connections to 450 bogus accounts on the company's social network. Twitter also revealed an additional 179 related or link accounts. Twitter executives also visited Capitol Hill today as part of the House and Senate investigations into Russian interference in the 2016 elections. Democratic Senator Mark Warner commented on the meeting, saying the briefing was, quote, deeply disappointing, and that Twitter's response was inadequate on almost every level. Coming up, GoPro unveils its most powerful camera yet. Could this be the key to the company's turnaround? We'll hear from CEO Nick Woodman next. And Bloomberg Tech is live streaming on Twitter. Check us out at Bloomberg Tech TV, weekdays 5 p.m. in New York, 2 p.m. in San Francisco. This is Bloomberg. TaskRabbit has agreed to be acquired by Swedish furniture and home goods giant IKEA. The San Francisco-based startup said in April it was exploring a sale after receiving interest from a potential unnamed buyer. TaskRabbit helped define the gig economy of the last decade and will remain an independent entity within IKEA. CEO Stacey Brown-Philpott will continue to run the business. Terms of the deal were not disclosed. GoPro has unveiled the Hero 6 at an event here in San Francisco. The company is calling the camera its most powerful and convenient GoPro yet. It is a product the company is betting big on, as it could resurrect financial growth. GoPro also announced its consumer 360-degree camera, Fusion, will finally hit the market. Bloomberg's Selena Wang spoke with GoPro CEO Nick Woodman and asked what investors can expect will drive the long-term sustainability of growth. Take a listen.
GoPro has to keep innovating and coming out with new and exciting products that excite consumers. And I think we did that today with Hero 6 Black and Fusion. Hero 6 Black is far and away the most exciting and capable and easy to use GoPro that we've ever made. And then Fusion pushes GoPro into a totally new market with 360 spherical cameras. We think this is going to play an important role in the future of how people capture and share themselves, and Fusion is our first new product. And then we also made important advancements with Karma. It now has follow me functions and a cool new lookup feature that allows Karma to film what's above it, which is unique in drones. So I think that we're showing that GoPro is continuing to innovate and continuing to excite consumers.
So Karma and the spherical Fusion camera are new additions to the product line. How else are we going to see it evolve beyond the traditional action cameras?
Well, a big part of GoPro's future is we now see a GoPro as an untethered lens for your phone. What we mean by that is a GoPro now automatically copies any new photos and videos you capture over to your phone. And the GoPro app then creates a video for you. So when you use a GoPro, it's like using a separate untethered lens that offloads all its footage to your phone. So really a GoPro is the ultimate capture complement to a phone, and that as we think of ourselves in that way and we think about new types of GoPros, new types of untethered lenses, we think we can dramatically expand our market.
Action cameras are maturing, smartphones are getting even better and more durable and waterproof. So what's your pitch to those consumers who say, I don't need another camera, my smartphone's good enough?
Well, I think that a phone is a phenomenal camera. It's often in your pocket, and it's right there reactively when you want to film somebody or something else happening. But there's a lot of activities where you don't want to pull out your phone. You want to be more in the moment. And you also don't want to film somebody else. You want to film yourself. And so GoPro, with its untethered lens strategy, we think that we can make lenses that complement somebody's use of a phone, but not require them to pull the phone out or not even have the phone on them.
Now, the Hero 6 is using a custom designed processor. This is the first time. So why decide to go this route, and what types of challenges are associated with making this yourself?
Oh, well, designing and developing a processor with a partner as we did, there's always risks involved, but there's also a risk that when you're reliant on others' innovation and ingenuity that they put into their own work, into their own processors. And we found that what we wanted to do with Hero 6 Black, we couldn't do with any other processor that was on the market. So we had to develop our own. It allowed us to hit cost targets for the product. If we had even been able to do this with somebody else, Hero 6 Black would have had to be more expensive to the end consumer, so that's not good. So we were able to deliver Hero 6 at a lower price point, and we were able to hit performance levels that would have otherwise been impossible.
So last year was a challenge.
We're taking our destiny into our own hands from a technology standpoint.
And on that point, last year was pretty challenging from a technical standpoint. There were some product delays. So what have you learned from those experiences to make sure that the rollout of this year's products are seamless?
We're doing fewer things better. In previous years, we had other businesses we were running, like our media business. We had many programs going on in products that consumers never saw that were more targeted towards professionals. We cut all of that and focused GoPro on what it does best, and what our whole vision and mission is to help people capture and share their lives so that they can celebrate the moment in a way that they just can't with any other camera.
Being a hardware company is very difficult in the public markets. GoPro shares have fallen quite dramatically since the IPO. So what are investors missing?
I think investors are missing that we're growing again. The previous comp of 2016, people think that unit sales are way down, volumes were higher in previous years, but what they need to look at is that volumes of our premium products, $299 and above, are growing. We're selling more of the products that matter and of the products that have better margin for GoPro and make us more profit. So GoPro is healthy and it's growing, and I think investors are starting to take notice.
And let's quickly talk about drones. Many analysts say that the market leader DJI has superior features and a similar price point. So given those market effects, how much of a revenue driver do you see drones becoming for GoPro?
We're really excited about drones. Karma is doing well. It's a phenomenal accessory for the GoPro community. It's very versatile with the detachable gimbal and how it connects to the Karma grip, and our customers have spoken. They really like that flexibility, that versatility, and Karma continues to get better. You know, today we announced Follow Me features, as well as a lookup feature that allows Karma to film what's above it, which, as I mentioned, is unique to drones. And we're going to continue to innovate and advance our drone offering into what comes after Karma.
That was GoPro CEO Nick Woodman with Bloomberg Tech's Selena Wang. Well, famed investor Jim Chanos said in June that he would give up his short bet against Tesla once the company begins making money. So far, Tesla is burning through cash and not profitable. Plus, analysts covering Tesla keep pushing back their expectations for when the company will be profitable. You can take a look at this chart. #BTV6411. Bloomberg's What'd You Miss earlier today spoke to Chanos, who said that while Elon Musk made electric cars, quote, sexy, the financials are still not there.
This company was supposed to be making money now, and now it's supposed to be making money by 2020, and I'm guessing, you know, by 2019 we'll hear about 2025. This company is structurally unprofitable. Its capital structure is way too leveraged.
Chanos also discussed Bitcoin, saying the allure of the cryptocurrency is to use it in the black markets. You'll hear more about that on Bloomberg Tech on Friday. Coming up, one of the biggest names in streaming went public today. We look at how Wall Street greeted Roku next. And if you like Bloomberg News, check us out on the radio. You can listen on the Bloomberg Radio app, Bloomberg.com, and in the U.S. on SiriusXM. This is Bloomberg. That was EU Commissioner for Justice, excuse me. Let's talk about Roku now, which went public today. Alex Barinka here with me in the studio. So you spoke with the CEO of Roku. It was a good day for Roku. What happened?
It was a big day. They raised $219 million in their IPO, and the stock popped quite a bit, upwards of 50% today. So a good tech deal after a couple of flops this year, and it was good timing for them. When you look at their mix, you know Roku as the device seller. They sell the boxes where you can stream video from things like Netflix and things like that. But outside of the device, they're making a lot more money on what they call platform. I asked CEO Anthony Wood why this is a bigger thing for him. Take a listen to what he said.
The fastest growing category of content on Roku is ad-supported content. What we're seeing is one of the top terms the consumers search for on Roku.com is free. What I think is happening is we're transitioning from, mainstream TV viewing via linear to over the top. And as consumers move their TV viewing more and more to over the top, they want a few SVOD services like Netflix is very popular, Amazon, Hulu, and others, but they want a lot of free content. They want a lot of free ad-supported content as well.
So that ad-supported content is important because those advertisements are where Roku is making more money. They're pushing further into selling ads within the videos online, not just taking a cut of the subscriptions from the likes of Netflix or HBO.
So shares ended the day up 68%. How does Roku plan on competing with the likes of Apple and Amazon?
I asked the CEO this question, and he told me that, well, they are #1 right now, and they're going to continue pushing that position. They don't rely on marketing. They actually like customer reviews, which is an interesting stance. But they're relying on their current status and also the fact that their platform is basically the Switzerland of streaming. Any channel can get on them. So Amazon Prime users can queue up their videos via Roku. Same with Netflix. If you watch ESPN Live, you can do it on Roku as well. So he's leaning on that because the likes of Apple or Amazon, they don't allow everyone into their platform. So they're saying, look, you get it all if you come through Roku. And that's what they're pushing.
So if they're Switzerland, then who are the competitors? Is it Apple? Is it Amazon? Is it something else?
It is Apple. It is Amazon. And frankly, it's watching on other devices. Roku doesn't have a mobile or tablet offering right now. So a lot of the cord cutters are increasingly watching more video content on those devices where they don't have a play. So their bet is still that people like to watch long-form video on the TV. Whether or not that's how it plays out, I know investors, their new public investors, will be watching that battle closely as well.
So day one of this IPO successful so far. Others haven't been so successful this year. How are investors watching this, with regard to the broader public markets?
It's been slow. I'm here. I'm talking to my sources on the ground in San Francisco, and everyone's saying people are talking about 2018 now as being a big year, which is just disheartening for the IPO reporter and the likes of the folks who are in this realm. But we broke news on Quanergy, the self-driving car tech company. You have some smaller names like Zscaler that are preparing, but these aren't the big kind of blockbuster deals that you want. The #1 one that I will be looking for, the big one, is still going to be Dropbox. They have
is that happening this year?
We have said that they could file as soon as this year. So that's where the situation stands right now, but that'll probably be the next biggest IPO. Of course, we're also watching Spotify in that potential direct listing.
All right, Alex Barinka, who covers IPOs for us, thanks so much. Great to have you here in San Francisco.
Thanks for having me.
All right, now the story we tried to tell you earlier. EU's Commissioner for Justice, Vera Jourova, has said Facebook has become a, quote, highway for hatred. Jourova deleted her official Facebook account because she was tired of being trolled. She then announced new EU guidelines urging internet companies to do more to tackle terrorist content and hate speech. Speaking with me last week, Jourova explained what the EU didn't want social media space to become.
Want in European Union to have internet which will be hate-free and which will not open the space, I would even say a highway, for hatred and for inciting violence.
Vera Jourova there from the EU. Coming up, my wide-ranging conversation with Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella. We turn back to 2014 to when he first took over the tech giant. And a feature I want to bring to your attention, our interactive TV function. You can find it at TV Go on the Bloomberg. You can watch us live. If you miss an interview, you can go back to it. You can send our producers a message, play along with the charts that we bring you on air. This is for Bloomberg subscribers only. Check it out at TV Go. This is Bloomberg.
We wanted to make something that's cutting edge and is going to make the world sit up and take notice.
It's diversified, it's a true ecosystem.
You're really changing industries and you're changing processes. You need those skills, you need that information.
I'm Mark Crumpton in New York. You're watching Bloomberg Technology. Let's begin with a check of First Word News. National Economic Council Chief Gary Cohn today discussed President Trump's proposed tax plan at the White House. He laid out the timeline to push the bill through Congress.
They are working. They came in on Sunday to start working on the tax plan. They continue to work every day. Chairman Brady has said that they will get through the tax plan as quickly as they can. We would hope that we get through the House in October. We would hope to be in the Senate in November, and we would hope to have a bill done by this year.
White House Homeland Security Advisor Tom Bossert is again defending the Trump administration's hurricane relief efforts in Puerto Rico.
We are mobilizing and marshaling the resources of the United States of America in a way that is absolutely professional, fast, and adequate to meet the needs. Now what we have to do is marshal those resources in a way that distributes them through the island.
Bossert insisted the decision today to waive federal restrictions on foreign ships' transportation of cargo to Puerto Rico was made at the right time. Congress wants the Trump administration to consider sanctions and to reevaluate U.S. policy toward Myanmar. The country has forced 500,000 Rohingya Muslims to flee Bangladesh, creating a refugee crisis. Islamic State has released what it says is new audio recordings of its leader, Abu al-Baghdadi. Russian officials have said that was a high probability that al-Baghdadi was killed in an airstrike in Raqqa. The U.S. disputes the claim. Global news 24 hours a day, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in over 120 countries. I'm Mark Crumpton. This is Bloomberg. It's just after 5:30 p.m. here in New York, 7:30 Friday morning in Sydney. I'm joined by my colleague Paul Allen with a look at the markets. Paul, good morning.
Good morning, Mark. Well, let's start off over in New Zealand, where the market's been trading for about 30 minutes now on Friday, and already we see stocks up about 1/3 of 1% following US equities higher. Here in Australia, futures higher by about 1/4 of 1%. The Aussie slipped a little more overnight, as low as 78 cents at one point before recovering. Iron ore off to about 2%, now at $62.89 a tonne for delivery to Qingdao. Over in Japan, Nikkei futures showing a bit of weakness. A lot of data data out in Japan today over the next couple of hours. We have consumer prices for August expected to rise to 0.6%. Jobless for August expected to hold steady at 2.8%. Retail sales, however, expected to contract. And we've got balance of payments data out of South Korea. I'm Paul Allen in Sydney. More from Bloomberg Technology next.
Technology, I'm Emily Chang. When Satya Nadella took over as CEO of Microsoft in 2014, he had big shoes to fill. Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates was leaving his role as chairman. Steve Ballmer, known for his big personality, was moving on. What is lesser known is how Nadella made it from India to Microsoft, joining the company back in 1992. Now, in his first book, Hit Refresh, he sheds light on his life, his career at Microsoft, and how artificial intelligence will shape the future. In this week's edition of our long-form show, Bloomberg Studio 1.0, I asked Nadella about his transformation from being what he describes a not-so-ambitious student to CEO of one of the biggest tech companies in the world.
I was not really planning on looking back at my life. I was mostly thinking about, hey, what's the transformation that we're going through while we're going through it, because that was the real motivation. But with some encouragement, I went back and tried to sort of trace what are these hit refresh moments, so to speak, even from my past. I think the thing that I now recognize more so than when I was growing up is the space I got. I think that the ability to think for yourself, the ability to follow your own passion versus trying to fit a particular mold, in the long run has been more beneficial than any academic excellence in the short run could have. And that, I think, is something that I now think is perhaps as important as we think about all of what we say is needed in education.
The most powerful moments for me in the book are the family moments. It's really a love story for your wife and for your children, your son, Zane, who was born with severe cerebral palsy. How has Zane changed you as a person and as a leader?
You know, when Zane was born, I was 29, and if you had even asked me just the night he was born, a few hours before, what was sort of going through my head, I would have been more, when is Anu, my wife, going to get back to work as an architect, or is the nursery going to be ready, how are our weekends going to change? And yet, that night, everything changed when he was born because of his in utero asphyxiation, and he had severe brain damage, which led to cerebral palsy. But for the first couple of years, I must say, I struggled with it. In fact, everything that I thought was my plan, in some sense, fell apart. And it was all about me, and I was, oh, why did this happen to me? Why did this happen to us? It was only watching my wife and what she did. She immediately, just the very next day after a C-section, she stepped up and started caring for Zane. And in some sense, over the years, without actually schooling me, she schooled me that nothing happened to me. Something happened to Zane, and I needed to step up as his father. And that, to me, is perhaps that most tough lesson that one, life teaches you, is to be able to see life through others' eyes. And that, to me, is perhaps where a bit of more of this need for empathy comes from. It definitely changed who I was as a person, whether it's at home or at work.
In working with Bill Gates and Steve Ballmer over 2.5 decades, what are the things you want to emulate, and what are the things you want to do differently?
I think both Bill and Steve, one of the things that is just pretty stunning to me is their intellectual honesty. What I mean by that is their ability to see things, good and bad, but most importantly, things that need to be improved, with such clarity. And I've always felt that at Microsoft there would be lots of people who would run around wanting to be like Bill and Steve, except that we would not have that same level of intellectual honesty. But that is just such a high standard, and more importantly, such an inspiring standard they set for all of us.
So, when you came in, you got the job and you said, look, there's a lot to fix at Microsoft. The company is sick. The company has lost its soul. How do you come in and say everything needs to be fixed without offending them?
Well, I mean, in fact, when I think the courage to be able to both look at what needs to be fixed and also recognize what is good. The smarts for that, I think, is something that I, quite frankly, learned from those. In fact, Bill in his forward probably captures the logic of hit refresh the best, which is it's not about changing everything, it's about changing what needs to be changed, and therein lies the trick, so to speak. But they were very clear. In fact, Steve's last piece of advice to me was be your own person. And I'm a consummate insider. I grew up in the company that Paul and Bill founded and Steve and Bill created. And so to me, I was part of the same journey. I'm proud of that journey. Yet, I had that outsider's perspective, as best as one can have, having grown up there, to be able to say, hey, look, these are things that we absolutely need to change.
So when you and Bill Gates disagree, what happens?
Well, look, today Bill's very clear. Look, I'm the CEO. Bill can give me the most critical feedback, but it's up to me to make sure that I'm leading the company. And so there is no confusion on that. But I value, quite frankly, Bill's, if Bill disagrees, it's something that I probably should go look at again.
Much more of my conversation with Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella coming up next. Well, Apple is being urged to activate an iPhone feature that could save lives during a national disaster. Mobile phones come equipped with an FM chip that could help many people in a natural disaster keep up with emergency information. However, that feature is disabled in iPhones, a move that lawmakers are saying could be putting lives in danger. Florida Senator Bill Nelson is leading calls for mobile phone manufacturers to activate those chips. Most of those pleas are directed at Apple, whose iPhone accounts for more than 40% of the U.S. smartphone market. Coming up, we will have more of my conversation with Satya Nadella, CEO of Microsoft, including what he thought about his meetings with President Trump. This is Bloomberg. Now back to my sit-down with Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella. The company has been very out front in opposing some of President Trump's policies, from the travel ban to DACA. I asked Nadella how he decides when to push back.
For us, it comes down to what are the timeless values that then have to translate into these principled stands that we take. Whether it comes to immigration, making sure that we do everything to protect our employees who are contributing not only to Microsoft but to the American society, in the case of Dreamers, taking a principled stance. So that's how we pick these issues. But at the same time, we're not elected officials. I don't have a mandate. So we're clear that ultimately we are subject to laws, but we will fight for what we believe is the rights of our people.
We've seen the NFL getting pushback for pushing back against President Trump. Starbucks has gotten pushback from shareholders. I'm curious, have you gotten any of that pushback from customers or the board?
One of the things, whether it's at the board or even at our management level, perhaps the biggest recognition, if I've learned one thing in my, 3.5 years as a CEO, is the true multi-constituent nature of the job, right? It's not as simple as thinking of it as just the shareholders, just the customers, just the employees, just the government. It's all of these forces simultaneously all the time. For a large company like ours, a large multinational company like ours, really balancing all of this is what is required.
You've met President Trump twice now. What's your impression?
Both the times, the conversations were all centered around, in fact, my conversations were around immigration and why I think immigration and immigration reform can drive American competitiveness, making the case for it, as well as the need for American infrastructure, in particular digital infrastructure. And those conversations were good, and he was receptive to those ideas, and now we need to sort of keep working and making sure that there's action on it.
We're seeing drive to further regulate the tech industry, from Google to Facebook, from the U.S. to Europe. Are you concerned about the threat of increased regulation?
I mean, I think the most important thing for tech companies is not to worry about any impending regulation. You have to be able to look and say, like in our case, in any country, whether it's in the UK, in Germany, in China, or in the United States, how have small businesses become more productive? How have large businesses in those countries become more competitive? How has public sector become more efficient? That, to me, is ultimately how I think we have to measure our success. And that's what's going to cause governments to say, are these companies contributing or not?
Do you think that the tech industry should be doing more self-policing?
I mean, I think we all, because the pace of change is such and rapid that we absolutely are going to look at the unintended consequences of technology and make sure that we do not trade away some of these timeless values as there are advances in technology. So I think long before even regulation, it's important for tech companies to quote-unquote self-police or build the tools that create transparency, make sure that people's privacy is protected.
There's been a spate of sexual harassment allegations in tech. Many revealed publicly, many more, I'm sure, happening that we don't know about. What is the responsibility of the tech industry here? You know,
first, let's start with recognizing how important it is for our business to have a diverse workforce that is then able to do their best work. But that means you have an inclusive culture so that you can create the products and services that can serve the world. And I look at it in Microsoft, we talk about our mission is empowering every person in every organization. And it has to start with representing that every person in every organization inside. If you recognize that importance, then you will go to work like we are in saying, okay, what's the representation? In our case, for example, women's representation, which is low. We've been pushing hard. In the last couple of years, we've gone and improved it by a couple of points to 27.7%, which is nothing to write home about. We have a long way to go. We improved it, in fact, by 4%, again, from a much lower base. But the thing that perhaps all of this conversation in the tech industry is, I believe, the best thing that can happen for this industry, because we are now going to tackle front on without sort of having this be something that is not talked about, as what about inclusion? It's not just the numbers. The numbers don't happen on their own. It only happens when people feel that they can, in fact, bring their A game.
You made a much criticized remark at the Grace Hopper conference in 2014 about women seeking pay raises. You said it's not really about asking for a raise, but knowing and having faith that the system will give you the right raise. You apologized. You spent 4 pages in your book talking about why that was wrong. How has that experience informed your views about, revealing your own implicit biases and others having the same sort of awakening?
I mean, to take a question at a women's conference and answer it literally based on one's own experience, especially sitting in the seat I sit in, it's just nonsense. Because what was behind the question is, what are you as the CEO of Microsoft going to do to make the system be more fair so that I get the opportunity to do my best work? And that, to me, is of the real awakening. And that's what I went back and said, wow, how could I not get that? The deeper sense behind the question. Definitely for me, I've used it as a learning opportunity. And for our company, I think we are better off because of my real public messing up of that, because we take it seriously. But I mean, I've had a chance to learn a lot from it.
That was Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella. Coming up, what he has to say about artificial intelligence and the importance of hardware to Microsoft. This is Bloomberg. Returning now to my conversation with Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella. The company famously struggled to make smartphones, but continues to push forward with other gadgets, from the Surface laptop to the Xbox. I asked Nadella just how important it is for Microsoft to keep making its own hardware.
You know, to us, one of the key things, I guess it's Alan Kay who said, if you're serious about your software, you make your own hardware. I think there's some truth to it. And the reality is we will always invest in hardware to create new categories.
So would you ever make a phone again? And under what conditions?
I mean, one of the things that we've sort of said multiple times is, look, at this point, what is needed is for us to not be obsessed about categories that are well served. Not at least on current rules. What is considered a phone today will be very different in the future. The question is, even take HoloLens. Is it a mobile device? Yeah, it is. It's untethered. It's battery powered. You wear it on your eyes. What is the future of those kinds of devices? So to me, for Microsoft will always be in this end-to-end computing experiences business. But our goal is to invent categories and reinvent categories.
You talk about 3 big strategic bets for the future in your book: mixed reality, AI, quantum computing. On the issue of AI, are you at all concerned that Google or Facebook or Amazon or Apple could outpace Microsoft on AI and then become dominant in AI, this AI future that we keep hearing about?
You know, to me, what is Microsoft's approach will be all around how do we take AI. Today it's a little, perverse in the sense that everybody says, oh, look at me, how cool I am because of the AI capability. That's not how Microsoft approaches any problem. It's not about any, parlor trick of ours and our prowess that we celebrate. The most important thing to us is, are we democratizing so that every customer of ours can build their own AI? Because if we really are going to have this 4th industrial revolution, we better figure out a way to democratize it so that every company, whether it's a small non-profit or a large multinational, can use AI in the context of their endeavor. That's kind of what we want to do.
Is Elon Musk right to be warning about the dangers of AI, whether it's the military applications or otherwise?
With any new technology, there is a lot of good that comes with it, and we should first grab hold of it and then be clear-eyed about any unintended consequences. So we've got to be able to use AI to first help empower humans. But that said, wherever AI runs amok or we lose control, that could be dangerous. And so I think the first responsibility we have, instead of thinking that that's going to happen, let us encode or enshrine a set of design principles. So I think that we shouldn't abdicate our responsibility. Like good user experience, there is such a thing called good AI. At least I'm of a firm belief that what is the need of the hour is for us as creators of AI to enshrine those principles.
So robots could take over the world, but hopefully not.
Yeah, it's up to us.
What is the one product that the competition got to first that you wish Microsoft could have invented?
Look, if I look back at history, there are many products. Quite honestly, I wish we had gotten even to the relational database before Oracle. Because if you think about one of the most amazing pieces of technology, or before IBM. So I just don't worry as much about looking at, hey, the product or the technology, somebody else got to it. The question is, are we able to go back to that sense of purpose that we have, of what we can do with the technology, however novel and new it is? It has to be something that fits with our identity. As I said, even if somebody else gets to a quantum computer first, what are they going to do with it versus what we're going to do with it is going to be probably very different.
You now build many of your products for several different operating systems. So given that, what is the future importance of Windows to the Microsoft future in general?
Windows, there's billion users of Windows. 300 million PCs got sold last year. And it continues to be a very significant part of what we do, but it's not the only part. I think that's the change for us, which is we now have a much more diverse, robust business. We have Xbox and gaming, which, by the way, spans both PC PC gaming and the console gaming. We have more than 55 million Xbox Live subscribers. We have the Windows business. We obviously have our Office 365 services that are part of it. We have LinkedIn. We have Dynamics 365. We have Azure and our hybrid infrastructure. So Microsoft, in that sense, is a much more diversified portfolio with linkages between them. That's, I think, how we're going to keep going forward.
My conversation there with Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella. That does it for this edition of Bloomberg Technology. This Friday, we'll be speaking with Sam Shank, CEO of Hotel Tonight, as the site gets ready to beef up competition with Expedia. And a reminder, we are live streaming on Twitter. Check us out at Bloomberg Tech TV, weekdays 5 p.m. in New York, 2 p.m. in San Francisco. That is all for now. This is Bloomberg.